And there's what, 20-second delay?
Think about that.
Yeah.
He'll give us the heads up, Carmine, when he's ready. Okay, Randy says we're good to go.
Okay, call the meeting to order. A statement of meeting notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the public 48 hours in advance of the date, setting forth the date, time, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, and the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.WTSCHOOLS.org. Subsequently, notice was posted on the district website regarding the change in format of the meeting. As a result of limitations placed on public assemblies due to coronavirus, related restrictions, and the governor's issuance of Executive Order 107, this meeting is being conducted via Zoom. Information regarding public viewing and comment has been placed on the district website. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to change the agenda. We're going to go right to the board retreat, and we'll let Charlene conduct the meeting from here. Charlene?
Great, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. This is kind of an annual occurrence for your board. We usually do it earlier, but circumstances being what they may, I'm happy to be here with you this evening. So again, the purpose is for us to set some goals, set some direction for the year, to kind of codify what that's going to look like. So I've just put together, for the benefit of the public, a brief PowerPoint to kind of help guide us through that process. So I am going to open that up and kind of use that, like I said, to guide the conversation here. So we're going to talk about setting goals. So just wanted to clarify, when we talk about goals, what we mean by that, because sometimes we use different terminology. So tonight we're going to talk about two different kinds of goals. We're going to talk about district goals and board goals. So I'm going to explain what the difference is between the two. So the district goals are those goals, that we would identify between 3 to 5 kind of focus areas that we think are so important to move the district forward that we are going to hold the superintendent accountable by putting these goals in his evaluation. So this then is fulfilling our legal requirement. It's part of, it's a legal part of the superintendent's evaluation. So this is the way that we as a board help set the direction for the district. If we say that we're not supposed to run the schools, but make sure that they're well run, this is part of the way we do that, by helping set the what for the year. What is it do we think is, are the priorities that need to be accomplished this year? And then we say that it involves everyone in the district, because as we are setting this what, then the superintendent and his team will develop action plans that will tell us how he's going to accomplish the what. And we'll look at one of those plans in just a minute, what that might look like. And then we should see then these goals surface in the buildings, in the learning that's taking place in the classrooms, and then the feedback then makes its way back to the board. So at some point, everyone in the district has touched or is involved in these goals. So this is establishing our priorities for the year. And then separate from that are board goals. So those are goals. There's more and more evidence that the work that we do as a board can have a positive impact on student achievement. So we need to make sure then that we are focusing on our governance work. What can we to help improve our work and make sure then that, we are effectively working together as a team and focusing on student achievement. So we then would identify some things that, can help improve the work of the board. And the difference basically between the two is to make sure then that all of the tasks to accomplish board goals has to be within the purview or has to be within the work of the board. It can be the administration's work. So what are things that we want to work on to help improve our work? So we're going to start out looking at last year's district goals. And we typically would have a conversation to kind of talk about how these goals are developed. We usually start out talking about things in the district that we're proud of. And for those of you that have experienced this in the past, I would normally come with my big yellow sticky sheets and we would identify those things, and usually would have about 3 to 4 sheets worth of things that we talked about in terms of accomplishments in the district and things that we were proud of. And the reason that we do that is that we can build off of the good things that are going on in the district. And then we would identify focus areas. What are some things that we think we need to focus on to help move us forward? So it has typically been the practice of this board not so much to author the goal statements while we're sitting here, but to more identify what those areas are. And then, sometime later, then someone actually, write the goal statements. So that's usually the process the board has used. So we usually looked at some goal areas. So you always had like a student learning and development goal area. And then last year, we also had a school operations goal area. So as you look at those goals, one of the things that we might find based on the situation we were in last year, we may have not had the opportunity to accomplish all of them. So we may want to continue some of those goals, or recognizing that even if we did continue them, that the action steps to accomplish the goals, would be different because, we're in a different situation. So we looked last year at, looking at our curriculum from the perspective of the social and emotional learning needs of our students. We looked at the multi-tiered system of support as a way to continue to narrow the achievement gap, looked at, differentiated instruction, talked about students in grades 3 to 8 utilizing personal learning devices. Then from the school operations standpoint, said that we were going to look at student demographic, facilities and budgetary data, and then, to look at how we're now and to plan for the future, and then to ensure that our facilities are secure, clean, well-maintained, and environmentally sound. So those were the directions that we set for ourselves last year. Just wanted to share with you, I've been doing, quite a few of these goal setting sessions here over the past couple months. And because of the situation that we find ourselves in right now, just wanted to kind of share some common themes that I've been seeing, not so much that the intent is to influence you, but just wanted you, to make you aware, probably assuming that you are experiencing similar things. And one of the things that we're finding is that because of the complexity of that, creating a safe and healthy school environment for both our students and our staff, based on the situation that we're in right now, that is, such a large and kind of overwhelming goal that districts are not going in too many different directions. So kind of staying focused there, staying focused on what are our particular student achievement or learning needs that we need to focus on for our district this year. And then there's been a lot of conversation this year in boards between equity and anti-racism. So I don't know if those are things that your board has experienced as well, or things that you would like to focus on, but just wanted now to kind of open it. I'm going to go back to last year's goals too, to put that in front of you, but just kind of wanted to kind of put it back to the board now and have a conversation about, where you think we need to focus our attention on for this year, either looking at last year's goals that need to be continued or any other goal areas that you think should be a priority. Again, would also, make sure, like I said, that we recognize the importance of the safe and the healthy school environment, and just kind of kick off the conversation from there. Now, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see all of the board members. So Liz, I may need some help in, either calling on people or, recognizing who would like to participate. So any members have thoughts about either any of these goals from last year you'd like to continue, or thoughts about what their focus areas need to be for this year?
Well, I think student learning and development needs to be part of this with the social and emotional learning needs. Also, about safe and healthy schools needs to be part of this also.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think we really need to have some equity in there, and anti-racism. It's something that does plague the town and that people don't want to acknowledge or deal with, but I think that we do have to do it.
Okay, great.
I was raising my hand, so I didn't know if we had a system going.
Some kind of a priority here.
I was gonna chime in with Carmine on the first goal, as we are continuing to revise different areas in the curriculum that are currently lacking. So we're working on that. So I'd like to keep that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any other thoughts? So far we have the student learning and development, which would include the social and emotional piece, the safe and healthy school environment for our students and staff, and equity and anti-racism. Any other thoughts?
If no one else does, sorry, I just got back from the hospital, so I'm just eating now. I think that we need to look at how we can incorporate technology training for the teachers and further our student learning on technology, not just using it in the virtual classroom, but actually learning to use technology to further their education, whether it be through programming or robotics or other things. I think that does need, I know we started doing that in the past. I think that our students won't be prepared for 2030 and beyond if we don't incorporate more technology education.
We need more STEM activities.
Yes, but yes, more STEM activities. I'll be fine.
Okay. Anything else? And even in some of the areas that we have talked about, like the student learning and the safety, safe and healthy environment and the equity and anti-racism, are there any particular things under those areas of things that we would like to make sure that we cover this year or that are included?
Well,
Yes, Charlene, I'd like to jump in. I always obviously sit back and allow the board to make its contributions. And I think this is going to be met with a resounding approval. As we look to develop goals, one of the major, if not the most major goal, is ensuring that continuity of instruction and making sure that we're doing the best we can as a school district to promote safety and wellness within our school environment during a school year that will be like no other that any of us have seen before. You hinted at that very strongly at the start, and I appreciate that. To cement those and to memorialize those then allows some of the other things to take place, not only take place, but take place effectively and also take hold. Because obviously, anytime we develop a goal, we're looking for its ability to be sustained, where it becomes part of our everyday practice.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I was actually going to say what Jeff said, but I'm going to touch on it a little bit further. I think consistency within our 5 schools in regards to everything that Jeff said is a definite focus point, because I feel that it's not consistent. in the measures, even though it's written across the board as being consistent. I think we really need to make sure that it actually is executed consistently, as well as the curriculum and how the distance learning aspect is being handled across the board.
Thank you. So just so you know, I am making notes on all of this, and I will type all of this up for the board.
I 100% agree.
Good. Okay. So are we comfortable then with the direction then that we have just talked about in terms of that being our priorities for this next year then?
I think we also need to include clear communication between the board and the district, and the district and the board, and the board and the town, and the town and the board and district. I think we need to really focus on some clear and concise communication.
And some of this may be part of the board goal. So a lot of these things you mentioned, the board was involved in. It sounded like almost every aspect of it. So that may find its way as a probably more appropriately perhaps as a board goal.
Well, I think that there was some communication lacking, or people felt there was communication lacking in all directions. So I think it's both board goal and a district goal.
Okay. And some of these things too may be action steps within a goal. So if we talked about, say if we wanted consistency within the schools and the curriculum thing, so how we communicate that. So like communication may find itself, like it needs to be part of the discussion, but I just want to make it clear as we've talked about all of these things, some may be goals and some may be action steps under a goal. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so like I said, we can see where we have kind of a student learning goal. We have a health and safety goal. We have an equity and anti-racism goal. Then we've talked about, technology and STEM. So those probably could be a goal. And then like we talked about the consistency within the schools, and so that probably will be an action step as we talk about the continuity of the curriculum and our student learning and development. Those will all be pieces of that. And then I can see where the communication can weave itself in here in many different places. So it may fall out as its own goal, or it may fall out as being action steps and other goals, but we'll make sure that it's covered somewhere in the focus and priorities for next year. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. I guess before I move away kind of from the district goals, we always do, like I said, we always do talk about the good things that happened in the district. So I don't know if there's anything specific that anyone would like to share, just that you were particularly proud of things, of anything that the district accomplished last year?
I think surviving the pandemic, it's not going to make everybody happy because it's the impossible situation, but I'm pretty proud of the amount of effort and hours and hard work and consideration that we have all put in to do our best for the kids to return to school, where a lot of districts did not.
Great, thank you.
I would add, Charlene, just adding on to what Jess said, we did all of that and still kind of exercised fiscal responsibility and managed to our budget, which was declining year over year. And it's always tough, but we always I think we plan well and are fiscally responsible.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
I would also like to add that we managed to get the referendum passed and get some important facility upgrades moving at Old Farmers and the middle school.
Great.
And I think that we did it with a 0% increase to our town, with understanding that the financial strains on the town and people of the town.
Okay. Okay. Anything
I have a list of 11 items, and so far we're 4 for 4. Keep going, board. Keep going. I'm checking them off my list here.
Okay.
I'd like to add
Why don't we go to your list then? Yeah.
I always like to hear from everyone, obviously, first. The settlement of the teacher's contract was tremendous. Kelly had mentioned some infrastructure, positive infrastructure changes. And even though we didn't get to use it a lot last year, but we're very sensitive to reports from the township about vehicles misbehaving around school buses. And that prompted a bus camera system on all school buses for us as well. We mentioned at the start, thanks to Charlene, bringing that to the forefront, the continued refinement of the district's curricula, and also the professional development that continued throughout last year, including adding a new partner, in addition to the University of Pennsylvania and the Institute of Multisensory Education. We added Kiker Learning, which are Google gurus, certainly here in the U.S. We like the expansion of our co-taught classrooms, which provided a lesser restrictive environment for children, some children, with individualized education plans as well.
Great. You're right. That was a busy year last year, even in spite of it all.
Well said.
Okay, wonderful. So we will continue then to now look at, I said I would show you what a sample action plan looked like. So again, this is just kind of a sample more just to demonstrate that, once we have the goal statements developed, and then, like I said, the administration will develop some kind of an action plan. It may not look specifically like this, but the intent is to identify the steps to accomplish the goal, the staff, the resources that are needed, the timeline, and the indicators of success. And that is an important part because a lot of times we'll see in educational goals that the metrics are sometimes not specifically in the goal, but they are in the action plan. So it's an important way for the board, the staff, and the community to know, whether the progress that we're making on the goal based on the indicators of success. So now then, as we continue to move forward, now we would look at the work of the board and the board goals and ask ourselves the question, what do we need to focus on this year to continually improve our governance work? Again, recognizing that all the tasks to complete the goal must be within the board's purview. So if we look at last year's board goals, you guys are always very good at, someone on your board always authors these wonderful goals that are just, like I said, just really kind of meaningful goal statements. So, and you can see that the board set aside a very busy year for itself last year. So just again, kind of wanted to look at some of the highlights. And we already talked about the first one where the board said it would work collaboratively to ratify the teacher's contract. We talked a little bit about the budget, and you said that you would create a cost-effective budget that provided the educational resources as well as remedial support and continue to provide a safe and healthy environment. And the board also said it would strive for continued professional development on its own. So, similar to the way it sounds like professional development is very important in your district for the staff. It was great that the board is also setting that same example and said that you would, look to do that. To enhance communication and relationships. So here, I guess, is that communication goal that the board had with internal and external stakeholders. And then to create a cost-effective budget to look at some preventative maintenance things and also ongoing facilities improvements. looking at it from the, a multi-year perspective. And then we also talked about the bond referendum. So it sounds like the board, we've already talked about some of these things, that it looks like it has also been a productive year for the board. So as we look at, again, setting what we think some priorities for the board should be for this year, again, you can look at some of last year's goals and say that, yes, those are things that need to continue, or are there other things that we need to focus on based on the situation we find ourselves in right now? So again, I'm going to turn it over to the board members then for input from you as to things that you would like to focus on for board goals.
Yeah, I was playing around this week with board goals. And I think one of the things as a district is navigating COVID-19 and the health crisis. And to embrace, I'll read what I have written. As the district navigates the COVID-19 health crisis, work with key stakeholders to develop an effective return to school plan that focuses on the health, safety of the students and staff, embraces the diversity of all students, promotes educational excellence, and develops the social and emotional well-being of students and staff.
So again, we would have to kind of break that down into what parts that are specifically and entirely the responsibility of the board, and not something that would rely on the administration to help support it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pieces of that Carmine mentioned was the honoring the diversity of our student body. And I think to continue our efforts on the inclusion committee, regardless of what the results of any elections may be, whether the board obviously will change on its face in some way in November. And I think it's important to maintain that focus.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I agree. I also think we need to make sure that we focus on, we have a focus point on making sure that we deliver an equitable education throughout the district, regardless of social and economic needs of our students.
So again, from the board's perspective, I mean, you would influence that and possibly, like, how were you thinking that the board, how that board's...
I think that the board needs to encourage the district to ensure that at all times during distance learning, that we provide an equitable education regardless of economic needs. And I would think there's got to be something like that in almost every board. I may not know how to word it, but in a time where people who don't have internet suddenly can't go to class, we need to have a board goal that says that it's our responsibility to make sure that we push the district to always ensure that in times of need, those needs are met, so our students can receive an equitable education.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to word it, but I'm sure other districts have also included that somewhere along the.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, like I said, and we'll just, like I said, I'll capture these thoughts. Mm-hmm. And you guys will have some time in between now and your next meeting then to wordsmith them. Like I said, as you look at these lovely goals here, they started out as just rough words or ideas, and then someone took those thoughts and translated them. So, and Carmen, I want to make sure that I have captured everything that you have. So I don't know if you would email it to me, or because I don't think I got everything down. So okay. That you have it. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Is there any other thoughts?
We definitely need something about a cost-effective budget back in the
yeah,
and about a long-range facilities plan also.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that we also need to have whatever board is here moving forward, work together in work together.
Cooperative.
Just work together.
Okay.
And I think this third goal also to the board should be in there also.
The one about professional development.
Governance. Attending professional development, webinars, workshops, whatever's available.
Yeah.
And look for opportunities to attend and be more visible in school events. Even though the events are not around anymore, but eventually they will be.
And not just at the school. And is there any way we could word that so that it's not just at the school your child or grandchild or whatever goes to?
No, exactly.
I mean, the board represents all children throughout the district. And I think it's important that board members represent all schools, not a particular school.
Well, we just usually sign up for an event. So I think that is pretty effective how we've been doing.
Yeah, like the National Honor Society, there was one of those. There was the, what is that called? Where they dress up as notables, the night of the notables. That's another activity that board members can go to.
Right, but often I see that board members are going to events that their children or grandchildren are involved in, but not other schools. And yeah, we really have to be aware that we represent all schools, not one particular school. Often, it appears as if we are each favoring or have an agenda of a school that we are interested in. And I'm not saying we do, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but I think that we need to find a way to make sure that we don't.
And the board needs to be notified also.
Yeah, that's important.
Of what, and that could be done by the principals. We're having a musical event or a Christmas event, and, you're invited to come if you can make it.
Right. And I think that's why sometimes the board members go to the schools they're involved with because they know about it.
Kira's been holding up her hand for a really long time.
That's okay. I just want everybody to finish their thoughts. I was wondering if we could add board procedures, updating them and looking at them. I know that was something we discussed as a board also a while ago, and we wanted to add that to our goals.
Yes, thank you.
I had something too, but I'm not sure how to have this, if this can be just a board goal, but it's similar to the first thing. So I feel like we need to work more collaboratively with WTEA to address any concerns that they have within the district concerning, the pandemic or other things. I feel like we need to create a safe environment for them to feel comfortable coming forth with any concerns. And I know that that's sort of been a hot button.
Darlene, wouldn't that be more of a chain of command kind of an issue?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, once the board has developed the contract, the board should be developing policies, the board should be developing expectations, but in terms of communication, in terms of working collaboratively, the board would work through the superintendent, and any concerns that the staff had would be communicated to the board through the superintendent. Like we say, the board basically has one employee, and that's the superintendent. So if you have, concerns, communication, someone you need to work collaboratively with, it would be through the superintendent. It's truly an important thing during this time to make sure your staff do have a safe environment. And by you as a board, you have made that clear by having that be a district goal. You've made it clear then that you are holding the superintendent accountable to making sure that that happens. So that then as a board, you would be receiving evidence from the superintendent in terms of actions that have been taken to ensure that that happens. So that's kind of then where the board, the board influence or the board direction comes in setting that what of establishing that as a priority.
So would that be better off with district goals?
I think we already have it as a district, to have a safe and healthy learning environment for students and staff.
Arlene, I can lend a hand here. You mentioned before how important communication is and no argument at the table, right? And how that may just naturally be reflected in various action plans. I see what Jessica is describing as naturally being a critical key step in the recipe to the success of the goal.
Okay, I'll add that to the goal.
It could easily be a very key action step and naturally would be.
Great, thank you. Okay.
I'm not sure if this is I think we had this underneath the board goal, but one of the other things that we discussed was timely manner of agenda and minutes to the community.
So these will probably be things, you guys are up to probably 10 board goals now, right? So some of these things, as we look at what might be, effective governance or enhancing our governance structure, you would add some of these things as kind of sub-bullets or action steps. So that's probably where we would put the timely manner of the agenda. We would put the teamwork things. So those things that are all going to help work toward effective governance. So I'll make sure then that include all of those things under there. Otherwise, like I said, we'll have about 2 pages worth of goals. Okay, anything else? Okay, I appreciate the fact that as a group, you continue to hold yourselves accountable to very high standards and set high expectations for yourself, even during a time where there are already high expectations set for us. But you are just continuing to, keep the good work here going. So like I said, I will type all this up. Then just kind of wanted to kind of reiterate then what those next steps are. So we would take then these kind of goal area or goal concepts with some action things that we've identified, and between now and perhaps your next month's meeting to kind of compose goal statements from them, both from the district goals and the board goals. Then it's suggested that you as a board formally adopt the goals, like through a resolution. So that way it is clear to everyone, to the board, to the staff, to the community, what your goals are. It's great. I saw you, even take it a step further. You have your board goals on your website so that it's up there all the time for anyone to look at. Then as the board said, the superintendent should develop action plans for the district goals. And it's important that you as a board too identify steps of how you are, would like to accomplish your goals, and then even assign, responsibility. Sometimes that's where board goals tend to fall apart, is that boards set the goals, but then they don't determine how they're going to carry them out. Who's responsible? Should we divvy them up to committees? Like, how does it make sense for someone to stay on top of getting these goals accomplished? And then the same way that we would ask the superintendent to provide regular updates on the progress of the district goals, would ask that you as the board consider holding yourself similarly accountable and to provide regular updates on the progress of your goals as well. So, do that at a public meeting a couple times, 2 to 3 times a year, and say, these are our goals. These are the things we're doing to accomplish them. Again, so that it's clear the progress that you're making as a board and as a district. Before we leave the goal setting process, does anyone have any questions about it? I wanted to thank everyone for the time and the interest and the input that we received So the last piece of what we were going to talk about tonight, if we had time, and so I don't know where you think where we are at this point in terms of having time, was the board self-evaluation that each one of you completed, and didn't know whether you wanted to get into a discussion on that tonight, or if there is not time and would rather do it another time. I wanted to defer to you about how you wanted to move forward at this point.
I think we have like 5 minutes.
Okay. So in a quick 5-minute discussion, I think it would probably take longer than that. I think just to make it clear in terms of the process. So all for the community's perspective, it used to be required that boards had to fill out a board self-evaluation. If you hold the rest of the district accountable, you should hold yourselves accountable. About 5 or 6 years ago, the state relaxed that requirement, but your board continues to complete a board self-evaluation. I think I've been working with your board for 7 years now, and this is the 7th board self-evaluation that the board has completed. And so, like I said, it's just a way to reflect on your own work. And in this case, all 9 members filled it out. And the board self-evaluation is based on a 4.0 scale as the board looks at itself over 9 different categories. So the board's average score over the 9 categories was a 3.1. And, the board evaluated itself. I don't know if things are different or if you evaluated yourself harder this year. I can tell you that last year the average score was 3.6, and the year before that it was 3.8. So I don't, based on some of the comments, I would say you perhaps are in a different place or looking at things differently now. So also looked at the range. So the lowest score that the board gave itself was a 2.8, and that was in board and superintendent relations. And the highest score the board gave itself was a 3.8, and that was in student achievement. And, I can say that was probably the one thing that came out really clear through the board self-evaluation was the focus on student achievement. Because even on the very first page, you were asked to identify what you value as a board over these 9 categories. And student achievement, again, there was the highest of the 9 categories. The board gave itself a 4.0, that all 9 of you said that a focus on student achievement was vital. So if we, have some time later, I would like to go into some of these individual areas, because I think that you've mentioned some of the things tonight that probably could use some further reflection as we looked at teamwork, as we looked at understanding our roles, as we looked at the difference between being a policy-making body and avoiding the day-to-day operations of the district. Those are all some of the things that came out in the board self-evaluation that I think it would be helpful for the board to have further discussion on. So, if you all agree, then perhaps, we can schedule some other time when we have more time to do that. Again, like I said, I hope that you can, recognize the value in having this self-reflection and taking the time as a group to kind of identify those areas where as a board we do things well. And like I said, in the focus on student achievement, it was just, so overwhelmingly clear that is the priority for your board. And then those areas, like you said, there where you've identified that you would like to have some more focus and attention placed on. So. Okay. So like I said, so hopefully if the board is interested in having a further discussion on that, I would be glad to do it at some later time. Other than that, I think that we have accomplished the work tonight that we had hoped to do. And I will, like I said, get you this information together so that you can use it to develop some actual goal statements from the ideas that you all so generously shared with me tonight.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thanks, Charlene. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your meeting then. And it was a pleasure to see everyone again.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
Nice to
Charlene.
see you again.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, we'll return to the agenda. President's comments. On Friday, August 28th, Kelly, Jeff, Liz, and myself took a tour of all 5 buildings. We spent about 3 hours looking at all the safety items in place, the classroom configurations, the cleaning and supplies, equipment for staff to ensure proper disinfecting. Ventilation appeared to be good within the buildings. Water bottle filling stations were up and running. All water fountains were wrapped up and disconnected. Buses making the first run to Cuccinella and Flocktown Cosman will then go to the bus depot to be disinfected for the second run to Old Farmers and Long Valley Middle School. The district also purchased storage trailers to store excess furniture that is not being used in the classrooms to make more room within the classroom. The custodial staff has done an excellent job getting buildings ready for the children and staff. We are now in our 3rd week of school, and school procedures are running well. The staff is working hard to create the best learning experience for the children. There have been some issues at the start, but those have been worked out. The Department of Education and Governor's Office has put certain restrictions in place that the district needs to follow with regard to a hybrid schedule as we work toward the common goal of providing an educational program to our students in a safe and healthy environment. Now, since we are past the 9/11, I would like to take a moment of silence to honor those lost on 9/11 and let us never forget. If we can have a moment of silence. All right, superintendent's report. Your mic is not on.
That will not be the last time, I guarantee it, right? I know I can speak for all of us here on the board level and the leadership team. It's beyond thrilled to have been able to open our schools to our students, to our staff, to our parents, in essence, to begin this new school year. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our entire Washington Township Schools professional family, our students' parents, the Washington Township Board of Health, our own leadership team, and the Board of Education for making in-person a reality for our Washington Township Schools, for the children's Washington Township Schools. The work to get to this should truly be celebrated. It has been as challenging as it has been ever so rewarding for all of us. And, Carmine mentioned we're about to embark on week 3. Today marks the 2-week point in our school year. And we do remain as committed as ever. There'll be no wavering to support our teachers, our staff, our parents, and our students. What will be, as I said before during our retreat, a school year like none of us has ever experienced before. And make no mistake about it, we know realistically there will be bumps in the road, but there will also be many successes. And I can tell you, just in these short 2 weeks, there have been many more successes than there have been bumps in the road. And we need to celebrate those successes as our there are bumps in the road as proactively as we can to perhaps minimize those bumps as we move forward. To date, we know that the planning effort from the start has reflected a conservative approach with many restrictions, as Carmine mentioned, in place. We are beholden to the state's guidance document, in order to open schools with approval upon its initial review back in August. And we're very proud of that. We also know that we are witnessing students and staff acclimating to school life in the year 2020 more and more. Each day will get a little better as we for sure. Reopening and as we begin ahead to our head for next week, take the door shut as I often spoke about, get two more school together. That process will formally begin.
Jeff, I can't understand what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the connectivity, the connectivity is bad. You're going in and out.
Oh, not good. Not good.
Your image is fine. Your image is fine. Just the volume and the sound is like.
Yeah, let me check some settings here. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. It's interesting because I was having a conversation with some teachers at Cosman today, and we were saying over time, how we often scream at our computers and we realize we don't have to. The microphones are often more sensitive than we realize, but I will scream into my computer, tonight for sure. We were looking now to, can't hear me, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. How am I now?
It's okay.
So what we're looking at the next 6-week chunk yet. Our leadership team will begin that formal process tomorrow because we meet on a regular basis. We will look at reflections, we'll look at refinement, we'll look at things that as we begin to move forward. Can you hear me still?
It's cutting in and out.
I'm sorry. I can't imagine what the issue would be. Let me take a look at some of the settings here.
You don't have a headset, do you?
Everyone else appears to be on mute except Carmine, so that shouldn't be the issue. Hang on a minute. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is the first for the. Usually I'm too loud. Liz, if you're comfortable, I'll come into your office with my mask.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So what I was talking about was, the time now as we begin week 3 is to begin looking at what our next 6 weeks chunk or segment will look like. I can tell you that process will begin formally tomorrow. It begins with a reflective activity that the leadership team will engage in. And together, it's funny, it sounds almost like the district goal, we'll begin to map out a process for beginning to engage people in the continued planning of this school year. There's no doubt, I know if everyone had their druthers, we'd wave that magic wand and the pandemic would disappear. I know we all desire that, but I think we're reminded, and very starkly so, based on the communication and the positive COVID case we had within our school district yesterday, that this is a reality. And it's a reality we're going to be living with for quite some time. That doesn't mean we won't have opportunities to become less restrictive. We have to zero in on that as a very important goal for us over time. And we have to hold ourselves accountable for revisiting that. But I can also tell you that we have to be very careful about opening up the school too much. And we're reminded of why. We realize COVID-19 is a reality in our nation, in our state, and yes, even in our community. We know our transmission rates are low. We like our numbers right now, but any change we make could jeopardize the health and safety, which we all heard during the retreat. That is our primary goal for this school year. So any change that we entertain has to be vetted very closely, not only with our board committees, but also with our local Board of Health. We have a great relationship with Carolyn and Chris and Kurt at the local Board of Health level. But when I look at the realities of the pandemic, we are sadly reminded yesterday, that COVID-19 is real, and we have to be very wary and safeguard people to the best of our ability. And I know that all of our thoughts turn to that individual who is affected with the virus right now. And I know you all join me certainly in expressing well wishes to the individual. And I just want to make sure that we keep that person in our thoughts as we continue throughout this week and the coming weeks as well. So we are committed to working with our Board of Health even to begin identifying what are some of those markers, if you will, that will indicate to us what should we be watching for within our community that may enable us to become less restrictive as we continue our planning effort, which, as I mentioned, is underway as we look ahead to the following 6 weeks, which would be right about mid-October, right about up until the Thanksgiving recess. But I just want to, reach out to everyone at this point here and just say thank you very much, because it has been, I think Michelle mentioned it, we were able to open. Actually, it was Jess. We were able to open when many school districts simply could not. I know I've received a lot of phone calls from colleagues, just teasing the brain a little bit. They're hearing about what we're doing, and we just want to be able to support education, not only in our district, but certainly here in Morris County the best way that we can. But we thank everyone for their patience, their understanding, and for all of you. I have to mention, for all of you that were able, to send something our way. We're already receiving really positive vibes and sentiments from so many people in our community, and those that have sent feedback. We value that as well. I do my best to get back in touch with everyone, but what we're learning in a pandemic, sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it could be 3.5, 4 days. But certainly, we'll make sure we get back to everyone who expresses any concerns or feedback to our Board of Education or to me personally. Carmine, back to you. Okay. And I'll go back to my office.
We received 13 emails for correspondence. There were no committee reports. And that brings us to public comment on agenda items.
There were no requests for public comment on agenda items, Carmine. We do have requests for later on.
So we'll move on, okay. Do I have someone move the minutes for the August 11th regular meeting?
I'll move the minutes.
All right, Jessica, second?
Second.
All right, Al, second. Any comments or? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Oh, actually, I'd like to abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Tracy.
Got it.
All right. For the August 11th executive session meeting, motion to accept those minutes. Anyone?
Motion.
All right, Kelly, second.
Second.
All right, Justin. Any comments? All right. All in favor? Aye. Or raise your hand. Opposed? Aye. And abstention, I guess, just say.
Abstention.
All right, Jessica, would you like to move education?
I would like to move education items 1 through 3.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Kelly. Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, I was muted. I do have a question. I know that we're allowing field observations and field placements in. I'm assuming that happens when we are on a hybrid schedule, or is that happening right now?
You're looking at education E1?
Right.
So that field internship involves Kathleen Erb, who's actually our physical education teacher at the Cuccinell School. So she and Melissa have connected along with Centenary University. That's happening.
Right, and then there's B as well.
One more time.
There's B as well. So there's Kathleen Araby and then Monique O.
Yeah, so we are also entertaining, student teachers or interns as well from universities, not many, but we're able to help and support, the future.
Are we training them on our protocols, our safety protocols as well?
Yeah, they're all part of those processes as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other?
Yeah, let me just mention, I'm required to report allegations of harassment, intimidation, and bullying since our last board meeting back in August, and there have been none.
Oh, wow.
I'm happy to report there have been none.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Munley?
Yes.
Mr. Kinney?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes. All right, Kelly, you want to move finance?
Finance would like to move item number 4 on the agenda, motion to accept with gratitude the following contribution. Vinyl pavilion valued at $17,498.25 from the Flocktown Cosman PTA to be used at the Flocktown Cosman School.
Wow. That's incredible.
Nice work. Second.
Oh, second, Justin, second. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo?
Jose?
Thinking about it.
Yeah, I have to think about it. I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if I should say that. No, yes, absolutely. 100% yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes, with gratitude.
Mrs. Munley?
Yes.
Mr. Kinney?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes, definitely yes. All right, Kelly? Yes.
And finance would like to move items number 5 through 11 on the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Jessica. Any discussion? Comments? All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Munley?
Yes.
Mr. Kinney?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes. All right, Jose, you want to move personnel?
Sure. Personnel would like to move the following item. Number 12, motion to accept with regret the following resignation effective September 1st, 2020. Rose Landis, special education teacher due to retirement after 32 years. Elizabeth Perry, special education teacher due to retirement after 25 years. Lisa Crow, special education aide. Brooke Gardner, special education aide. Edna Miller, special education aide. Amy Pergola, special education aide. Elise Sokol, special education aide. Karen Villano, special education aide. Karen Cross, from the position of playground supervisor.
Is there a second? Jessica, second. You know, it's always wonderful to see people with the longevity of 32 years and 25 years.
Mm.
Always great to see that. All right, Jeff, you want to say something?
Mute.
There we go. Hopefully my voice is picked up for this segment. I'm going to begin with Rose Landis. This was a difficult decision for Rose, and I know that it was agonizing. And I remember sharing with her that she has given so much through the years. And it's just difficult to imagine sometimes your life without education. But she has dismounted gracefully, if I may add, from our profession. And she joins her husband, Dan, right, who we noted a retirement back in the late spring. And Rose has just been such a caring and gentle and guiding hand for children through the years. And when I say she truly loves her profession and has a deep fondness for her colleagues and her students, that probably is an understatement. And we wish Rose all the best. And if she's listening, I hope you're enjoying your retirement, Rose, because it just became official. But she's been wonderful. Thank you for a fabulous 32 years. I'm glad I had the chance to know you for 10. Elizabeth, we know her as Beth Perry, all special education teacher. Beth has served our children mightily, with heart, with passion, with unwavering commitment to making sure that the children were not only served well in every capacity, not just curriculum instruction, but socially and emotionally. Not only were they served very well, and always with a caring heart in a quarter century of tremendous contributions. And I noted to Beth a couple of weeks back, or maybe early last week, that she can hold her head high, knowing that through her art, through her craft of teaching, she, along with Rose, have made this world a more beautiful place. So to our retirees, Rose and Beth, congratulations and a big thank you on behalf of all of us.
Roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico,
Yes.
Mrs. Munley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinney,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. Jose, you want to move the rest of
Yeah, thanks, Carmine. Personnel, I'd also like to move items 14 through 27 on the agenda.
You mean 13?
Oh, was it 13? Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Tracy. Yes, 13 through 27.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michelle, second. Any discussion?
Carmine, I have a question, and this is just because I was interested in it. What is a attendance officer?
Carmine can either field the question or he can defer to Liz or me.
Yeah, Jeff. I'm speaking to Jeff. Sorry,
Okay.
Carmine.
Carmine, may I take that? I don't want to step on your toes. The attendance officer, we've used our attendance officer, and Randy Backer has been wonderful through the years for us. Sometimes it's a home check to check on a child if we don't get a call from the home and we're unable to reach the parent. Sometimes it's a residency issue as we try to work through residency issues with some of the parents of our students or the guardians of our students. And he's on in families for particular reasons.
I'm more acquainted to truant officers.
I knew you would say that. Like back in Our Gang comedy, right? There was a truant officer. Yeah, thank goodness we don't have a truancy issue, in our Washington Township schools. But Carmine's right.
Any other comments? All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico,
Yes.
Mrs. Munley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinney,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. Which brings us to unfinished business. Liz, is there the person there?
Yes, I'm going to admit them to the meeting now.
All right, this is Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee report on mission statement, vision, and goals. Kelly, are you there?
Okay, I think Kelly just joined us.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Kelly. Unmute. I think you're muted.
I can, Kelly, I'll unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. All right. The Diversity and Acceptance Ad Hoc Committee was created by the Washington Township Board of Education at their July. A second. Okay. I'm going to start again. The Diversity and Acceptance Ad Hoc Committee was created by the Washington Township Board of Education at their July 14th meeting, and all members of the community were invited to participate. Around 35 community members expressed interest in the committee, and 20 individuals participated in our initial meeting on July 29th. 21 community members volunteered to serve on subcommittees that were tasked with discussing topics including curriculum, books and reading, diversity of staff, and professional development. Since then, this committee has become the subject of a great deal of discussion in our community. We're grateful that so many people are aware of the committee's existence, and we recognize that broad involvement is critical to our success. With that in mind, we thank the Board of Education for giving us the opportunity to share the committee's goals with the community tonight. The committee was formed after members of our community bravely came forth to share stories of the racism, discrimination, and marginalization that they have faced in Long Valley. Our mission is to work cooperatively with all community members to create an environment that promotes fairness, empowerment, and belonging for all children, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, physical, intellectual, and emotional abilities and attributes, socioeconomic status, family structure, and national origin. It's about celebrating differences and fostering an atmosphere where people of all demographics and abilities feel comfortable in our community. We want every child to be able to find themselves in the pages of the books in their school libraries. We want every child to see themselves represented in the art they see and the music they hear in their specials. We want their stories to be told in their entirety and not just in conjunction with specific holidays and historical periods. We want to support our teachers and staff members as they use their tools and training to understand and support every single child. We also want to make sure every child in Long Valley is prepared to enter an increasingly diverse global economy. Research has shown that diverse classrooms promote social emotional learning, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. They help children to develop self-confidence and empathy. Children are more confident and successful when they confront stereotypes and discover all the ways in which we are more alike than different. Since LGBTQ issues seem to be a particularly hot button issue for many people in our community, I'd like to take this opportunity to address those concerns directly. It seems that some people may have conflated the work of this committee with Governor Murphy's LGBTQ inclusive curriculum legislation, but we are not talking about sex ed or sexual relationships or dynamics in any way. This is simply about ensuring that children who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, or who have non-traditional family structures are represented and respected in our schools. The work of this committee is not political. We cannot set policy. We can only make recommendations to the Board of Education, which they can choose to adopt or not. We do not want to force inappropriate discussions of sensitive or controversial topics into the classroom. We simply want to promote an environment which embraces and celebrates individuality, diversity, fairness, empowerment, and community for all children in our district. We're looking for ways to engage the community in a conversation around these issues, and we welcome your ideas. Please feel free to contact us at wtacceptance@gmail.com. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have anything they want to, ask Kelly? I believe that when a child walks into the building, they should feel welcome. That's just basic respect for a child. There should be no child that feels excluded or not a member of their community. In fact, when I heard those children speak, Broke my heart. Anybody have my voice?
I'd like to thank Kelly for making a statement tonight and coming forward. I know that it's brave, and I appreciate it.
I do too. I actually want to thank Kelly and all of the members of the committee. They're putting in a lot of work behind the scenes, and I think that most people don't realize how much effort and time that this is taking, and it's important. So it's something that I think as a board, we need to continue going forward. As I said earlier, regardless of what the board looks like in January, I think that this is a really important initiative, and I want to thank all of the members of the committee, because this is, it's something that they're doing, putting time and effort in, and I know it's a little bit controversial, and there's some negative feedback, that some of the members are getting, and I just want to thank you for persevering.
I just wanted to say thank you, Kelly, for clarifying and putting that so eloquently.
Anyone else?
I want to remind everyone also, and thank you, Kelly, that we are forever a community, and that everyone is welcome here, and everyone has the right to feel confident, as you said, to feel capable, to feel connected, and to feel cared for, and to care for within our community. And we know the world that we live in. It's when we stop the effort and stop having hope that we don't see positive change for all humankind. Carmine, Laura Ann, just know we applaud the start of that committee from the start. And, hey, there are going to be some bumps in the road, right? But that always leads to positive change, and continue, please, to light the way for the children and all the residents of our community. Very much appreciated.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate that.
Hi, Kelly. I just realized you jumped off.
Any new business?
Well, I think we were still in unfinished business, Carmine. I had something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again.
That's okay. I just wanted to loop back to how we started the meeting with the board self-eval. I think that it's really critically important that we make time next month to loop back on exactly what the results of that survey were. I think it was really important for the board to reflect and grow as a result. So I would really like to see that on the agenda for next month.
Right.
Yeah,
I was going to suggest that also. And I think everyone should have received a copy of that evaluation, self-evaluation.
It was uploaded to the Google Drive.
Right.
Yeah, I want to take a moment and thank the board for understanding that I had my video off at the beginning. Unfortunately, my mom is sick. She's been in the hospital for a couple of days. It's been 12, 14-hour days at the hospital. Today, unfortunately, I did not get a chance to eat, and due to health reasons, I had to eat. So I do thank you for understanding that I had the video off while I actually did what I needed to do to take care of my own health. Thank you.
No problem. We understand.
We wish Mom well, Laura Ann, for sure.
Thank you. It's been a long couple of days.
I know it has been for you. Always trying. With regard to what Carmine and Michelle spoke about, is there any action item that you'd like Liz and I to carry forth, in the coming days or week in order to arrange Charlene's return?
Well, I think the next meeting is what, October 8th, I believe?
I have it as the 13th.
Oh, 13th.
No, October 8th is correct.
Oh, I have it as the 13th.
The 13th.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is October 13th.
There you go.
I looked at the wrong date.
Don't tell my wife, but I was right, okay?
I'm trying to go back in time and not forward.
I think we should try to be flexible with Charlene's schedule. If she's not available on October 13th, I would encourage us to maybe look to change the date so that she is available.
Well, that's like we did this time. Whatever date in October that she's available, we can do a 7 o'clock like we did this time, and it's a public meeting so that the community can see, exactly what's being done, how we go about doing things.
I agree. And obviously I'm one of the ones who's latest to meetings most often, and I would be willing to start even earlier if anyone else was amenable, just to make sure that we have a full and complete dialogue.
I mean, I have no problem with that. 6:30 is, how does everybody else feel about that?
Fine for me.
Fine for me.
All right. Then I guess, whenever she's available in October, we'll make it at 6:30.
I will check with her tomorrow and get back to you. I know she does get booked up, which is why we had to change tonight's meeting date.
Right. Anything else? All right, so we can close that. New business? Nothing. All right, which brings us to public comment. As a reminder, public participation is governed by Board's Bylaw 0167. All right, Liz, whenever you're ready.
Sure. We do have several people that pre-registered to speak to the board tonight. They are in the waiting room, so I will let them in one at a time.
Okay.
And here we go. And Carmine, just so if you acknowledge them so that they know that they're ready to go, and then we can proceed.
Rob, whenever you're ready.
I know sometimes the connection does take a minute.
All right. Rob?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay, good.
All right, I'll see if I can get video working as well. Bear with me a second.
You got
All
it.
right. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rob Waskis. I live at 17 Fawn Ridge Drive. My comments this evening pertain to the recent formation of the Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay.
The board has tonight acknowledged the controversial nature of the committee's efforts, and I would like to call the board's attention to its own bylaws, specifically section 2240, entitled Controversial Issues. The board permits the introduction of controversial issues, as stated in the bylaws. However, such an introduction must be, and I quote, related to the instructional goals of the course of study and level of maturity of the students. Furthermore, and again I'm quoting, the discussion of controversial issues must not tend to indoctrinate pupils or persuade them to a certain point of view. In the bylaws, guidance is given to teachers, quoting again, that in the discussion of any issue, a teacher may express a personal opinion, provided the expression is characterized as a personal opinion and does not persuade pupils to the teacher's point of view. The topics contained in the Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee meeting summary are highly controversial based on the definition presented in the board's own bylaws, in addition to being subjective, specious, and nebulous to the point where they can't be considered as anything other than a one-sided, highly biased, and often misinformed opinion. Finally, and again I will quote from the bylaws, the board will permit the instructional use of only those issues that have been approved in advance by the principal. At this point, I would like to remind the board of the New Jersey Department of Education's Code of Ethics for School Board Members 18A 12-24.1 Section D, quote, I will carry out my responsibility not to administer schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. It is blatantly clear that the board has overstepped its bounds in the attempt to indoctrinate our children with this needless disruption of the educational process. In conclusion, I'm calling for the immediate dissolution of the Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee based on the fact that it is in clear conflict with the published bylaws of this Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I yield the remainder of my time.
Okay. The only comment I would like to make is that the Ad Hoc Committee is investigating. They're not making decisions about anything. All right, it's just an information gathering, mechanism. That's all their job is. They're not setting policy. they're not doing anything that's the children are going to get unless it goes through the committee process of the board and is approved by the board.
Would it be reasonable to assume that the information they gather will be used in setting policy?
Well, I don't know what the information is. We were not presented with anything formally as to what came out of this committee.
So you were not presented with the information that they gathered? What about the methods they were using to gather their information?
What methods were using?
That's what I'm asking.
See, I'm not on that committee.
Carmine, can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Rob, I understand what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. However, you're way ahead of where they are, where they're still gathering information and they're still getting together what they would like. You're asking what they have decided and what they've done. They're not done. They're introducing yet. They have not come forth with policy yet. So
that is not correct. I was asking what methods they were using to gather information.
They have not gotten to the point where they've released information that they have gathered.
Again, I asked what methods were they using to gather the information?
That would be what information there's different methods to gathering different information. They haven't presented information. Right now they're presenting ideas.
Understood. They have not presented information. That's
correct.
Several times. What method are they using to gather information? Carmine stated very clearly that they were gathering information. What method are they using to gather the information?
Well, the information they are gathering, they are using, that's a hard question to answer without going into what information they're presenting. Right now, they haven't presented information, they're presenting ideas. So you can ask me how they're getting the ideas, but they have not presented information yet. But I think that when they have information, they will also tell you how they got that information.
Shouldn't they present their data gathering process first?
I think as they gather the information already presented, they will also tell you how they got it.
Carmine, can I just jump in here?
But you're a little ahead.
You're not supposed to be going back and forth with comment. It's actually against board policy, just as a reminder. And if I'm incorrect, anybody can feel free to correct me.
You're right, Jess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
If I'm incorrect, anybody can feel free to correct me.
You're right, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next. There's a little bit of a delay, so here we go. Stephanie should be joining the meeting. Stephanie, are you there?
I think she's muted. Stephanie?
Here we go.
Hi, how are you? I'm Stephanie Wilson. I just have a question about, the kids, and I understand, you guys want to keep the kids safe and everything, but with somebody who tests positive, is it really necessary to close the entire school? Could you have closed for one day, cleaned the school, and then had the kids go back? And what is the protocol for all the kids to return back to school?
Jeff? You gotta unmute, Jeff.
I certainly will, and thank you, Stephanie. What we know is that when situations, well, we know this now, right? When situations like this hit, we immediately go into meeting mode. So in this case, in the school leadership, and obviously we are privy to details that obviously other people would not be privy to, and I know you all respect that. So what we were looking at here was a matter of identifying contacts and realizing that in contact tracing, which we know can take some time, we're very fortunate that it did not take a long time because we were able to identify contacts immediately. We were able to notify parents of those contacts or relatives of those contacts, and we were able then to make sure that the Board of Health was poised to begin that contact tracing, which I think everyone who's tuned in tonight, rest assured that if you have not been contacted at this point in time, you haven't been identified as a contact. But as the Board of Health goes through all of this, want to many items, we want to make sure, I'm sorry, Kira, she's giving me the signal. I got to look at my computer tonight. I apologize.
Go back into Liz's office.
How's this?
Thanks, Kira.
Sorry, Liz. You're going in and out, so it's hard to hear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
She's trying to keep me out of her office. Is this better? Or do you want me to go?
No, so far it seems like it's okay. It just
Move.
Yeah, don't move.
I'm holding the cord into the computer with my thumb and forefinger. So, we obviously are privy to details that other people may not be privy to, but I think we owe it to our community, to our students, to our faculty, to our parents, to make sure that all of that contact tracing is completed. With contact trace, you can often find things out about other individuals. So we just proceeded with caution. We felt comfortable in terms of period of contagion, in terms of contracting disease, showing symptoms, etc. So we felt this was action to take at this point. And did I check out again?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Let me go into Liz's office as you suggested.
Thanks, Kira.
I'm sorry, Liz. Just pack up and go home.
No worries. We've been working together all summer long.
I'm so sorry.
Actually, since March 15th, I don't think we've missed a day. So.
Tell them to stand outside your office.
Yeah, there we go.
And what I'm finding out is I can still sprint, thank goodness. Folks, I want you to realize this is about a 500-foot distance between our offices. I'm teasing. So I'll backtrack a little bit. So obviously we as a school district and a very select few are privy to certain details regarding any case of COVID-19 that involves one of our family members. And we felt that it was a very prudent approach to knowing the number of contacts that we knew had to be made. We want to make sure that our Board of Health is able to reach all of those contacts, give them the advice that they need, the guidance that they need, and make sure that the contacts are being monitored. We feel we're going to be at a much better place at the end of the week. We would know that. The community may not know that, certainly, because we're very privy to information such as what was the period where an individual might be the most contagious. When did an individual develop symptoms, for example? And that helps us guide our process. We do vet everything with our local Board of Health and with our school physician as well. And for this particular situation, we felt this was the most prudent course of action to take. Understand that doesn't mean it's always going to be the course of action, because there are so many variables that we look at in conjunction with our medical officials to reach certain determinations. In this case, we felt it best, in terms of the health and safety and wellness of everyone, to keep the school closed and look toward Monday. We're optimistic about Monday, and as I mentioned yesterday, we'll be making that announcement as we head to next week. I know I said Monday, but obviously that's a virtual day. If that, either way, we're going to get back in touch with our community at the end of this week. And we are very optimistic that we will be able to reopen schools. But that's why that contact tracing is so important, and monitoring the contacts within our community. Understand that sometimes contacts are people that are outside our community as well. So it's a very involved process. It's a very intricate process with many layers, as you can imagine. But this was the best course of action we felt to take as we keep the health and well-being of our entire educational community in the forefront of our minds.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Randy suggests you restart your computer.
Okay, take it easy on.
Yep. And our tech guru who's monitoring the meeting has suggested that Mr. Moore reboot his computer and see if that solves his problem. So Randy is always watching over us. So thank you, Randy. So Jeff will be doing that. So as we let the next person into the meeting, we will okay, here we go. We'll wait for Jeff to come back.
Audio.
Okay.
Nicole, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I agree with the statement that all children in our schools should feel welcome, and that should be the focus for all. With that being said, a Board of Education is not defined as a governing body by the state of New Jersey. The role of a board member is quite limited. That role is not to administer the schools, but to see that they are run well. All board members throughout New Jersey must adhere to a code of ethics, which includes, and I quote, "I will carry out my responsibility, not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run." Ms. Quinones clearly does not understand her role as one of 9 board members. Setting curriculum belongs to administration. Supervising staff belongs to administration. Setting policies affecting staff behavior, dress code, and Facebook pages belongs to administration. Choosing library books belongs to administration. Setting district calendars belongs to administration. Ms. Quinones is clearly violating the code of ethics for board members in her attempt to push her radical agenda and micromanage an aspect of the district. The superintendent and board attorney should advise her that she's attempting to administer the schools in the role she is taking as board meetings and during her ad hoc committee. A board member making motions in the middle of a meeting to change a calendar is completely inappropriate. And by meeting, I'm referencing the last meeting in August. It is also an example of administering the schools. A board can vote for a calendar or against a calendar put forth by the superintendent. The motion made by Ms. Quinones was not provided at any meeting agenda, nor did the public have an opportunity to comment on the changes prior to any vote. The public deserves transparency and an opportunity to comment before motions are made and voted upon. Now that we know that there was an ethics violation with Ms. Quinones to change the calendar in the middle of a meeting without public input, is the superintendent Moore and the board willing to vote tonight to revert back to the original calendar?
We will put it on their advisement. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
I'm on?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for navigating these treacherous waters with ease. For all members, you need to identify yourselves when someone's sharing the screen, as we do not know who's speaking on YouTube stream. One member mentioned anti-racism. Since moving here to Long Valley from Queens, I have not seen any form of racism in Long Valley. Quite the contrary. But ironically, I've already been called a racist by some committee members. Some by people who I've never met and who don't know me personally. Therefore, I suggest that whoever's talking about anti-racism should start with themselves and look in the mirror before passing judgment on to others. And having said that, I would like to emphasize that I vehemently oppose and protest the work of the Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee and the document they drafted on July 29th, 2020, titled Draft Meeting Summary. First of all, the Ad Hoc Committee was formed without the full transparency, and I urge all BOE meetings take place in person. Having them streamed and controlling Zoom does not give us, the parents, proper forum to speak and voice our comments and concerns. Everyone should be able to look the committee members in the eye and ask or call them out on any issue. Plus, Mr. Morse could be barely heard today, and this is not serving our community at all. A few quick comments about the document. First huge problem in the document that I mentioned in my opening, I quote, "Being uncomfortable with our racist past is good," end quote. This kind of language is discriminatory, and it calls us all racists. This type of statement is full of hate, exclusion, microaggressions, and wrongness. I vehemently reject being called a racist, and I am sure other Long Valley residents agree with me. Actually, as a subject of communist oppressions, I feel personally offended by the wording in this document. BOE members cannot categorize anyone racists. Another thing, the committee's vague and discriminatory statements suggesting that our teachers could even think of posting something inappropriate on social media is absolutely abhorrent. Suggesting to monitor teachers' social media accounts amounts to nothing more than communist invigilation. My late mother was a teacher during communist times, and she was arrested twice for receiving just a simple postcard from Canada, from my sister's former babysitter, who managed to escape to Canada through Czech Republic and Austria. This is straight from Marxist manifesto, and I detest that. Another problem, diversity of staff. I think that people need to be given professional positions based on merit and their knowledge, and not based on the color of their skin. Renaming Columbus Day? You just excluded all Italian Americans, Europeans, and probably some Asians in the name of your committee's phony inclusion. This has to stop. Removal of toys representing other peoples? Are you going to start walking to people's houses and checking if we have Polish-looking doll? What is this? This is divisive. Ad hoc committee must be disbanded, and its members should apologize to all Long Valley residents for their divisive, dangerous, and repressive rhetoric. I can go on, but I will stop, and I will yield the floor to other parents who are probably more calm and are eager to voice their concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Melissa? Melissa,
Hi.
you there?
Yes, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My comment is regarding, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My comment is to,
Now you're cutting out. Are you there, Melissa?
I'm working on it. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. My comment is to propose risk point temp checks. I would like to propose to the board that if, being that our schools are continuing to administer the temperature checks on students and staff, that they be done on the student and staff wrists instead of on their foreheads. As you know, the New Jersey Department of Health has no requirement regarding the necessity of temp checks, as not all persons with coronavirus present with a fever, and a person who may take a fever reducer that morning may not be identified as sick. This was confirmed by speaking with a representative from the New Jersey Department of Health's Poison Control and Coronavirus Division. She had also confirmed that there are no known completed studies to determine if any potential long-term effects of repeated infrared exposure from these thermometers may occur. Her office at Rutgers University conducted risk point temp checks with no contact thermometers on their employees, not on the forehead, upon entry to work prior to the hospital being recently equipped with walk-through body scanners. Some school districts and rec departments are preferring the wrist checks. For example, Fairfield, New Jersey just switched, and their entire district is now doing wrist checks instead of forehead checks for these reasons, as well as for complaints from parents with negative optics and perceptions regarding the children being greeted off the bus or into school with infrared thermometers to their foreheads on a regular basis. It makes some of those children and parents uneasy, especially those who may have special needs and sensitivities. Additionally, if there's even a remote chance of negative effects from infrared exposure, I think it is in the best interest of our children and our staff members to move to risk point temp checks instead. I've submitted a published study that I was referred to regarding the validity of the use of wrist and forehead temp checks thermometers in screening the general public for COVID specifically. I thank you for your consideration and attention to address this comment.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I think Melissa, can you hear me okay, everyone?
Yes.
I think Melissa raises some good points. Our understanding through our medical professionals is that infrared thermometers don't emit any type of radiation. Rather, they sense the heat that comes off the human body. We understand they pose no risk to the pineal gland, which is located obviously deep within in the brain. But we will vet this further because certainly Melissa's concern would be a shared concern by anyone in the community. But I know that there was some controversy that maybe emerged several months ago, but I believe the medical experts have put that to rest. But we will circle back, not only with our school physician, but with our local Board of Health as well.
All right, Lloyd?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I want to thank you guys, everybody, to start off. Especially want to thank the teachers. You know, it's been a rather, tough time to try to navigate this changing environment. And, this school year is going to be kind of in the documents that we live under are a living organism, right? Always subject to change based on the environment around us and how it changed. So I emailed my comments prior to this to try to make sure, we're working towards a symbiotic goal of trying to find what's best for the kids and the parents in, a operational and health situation. So just a couple questions that I wrote down prior. So hopefully you guys may have had a chance to take a look at it. So you have an idea of what's coming. Kind of below I have is an outlined general student population, what happens based on the Board of Ed's rules when a positive to COVID-19 is confirmed. So based on the board's website, the Washington Township Administration consults a local Board of Health. The administration notifies the school community for confirmed cases within the district school building, and the administration communicates promptly with local Board of Health and school medical inspectors to determine appropriate school or district-wide actions. So this is kind of appropriate timing considering the middle school happened this week. So can you please kind of define the parameters that's required for a school closure, a prolonged closure, or a fully remote learning indefinitely?
Yeah, let me begin with fully remote indefinitely, and thank you, Lloyd. I haven't had a chance to view your questions yet, so I appreciate you delivering them one at a time for us this evening. We obviously know the full school closure, which would be a long-term in terms of going back to remote learning. One of the things that we look at within our community is the number of positive COVID-19 cases that have occurred since the start of the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, we have a scheduled weekly meeting with our Board of Health, which we follow through with on a weekly basis. That would be our lead nurse, Kim Pinto, and I meet with Carolyn Giordano and Chris Cook-Gibbs. And often we have the opportunity to speak on more than one occasion throughout the course of the week. Right now, we understand that there is a low rate of transmission within our township, actually within all of northern New Jersey right now. So that's something we watch very closely. If we were to see a sudden uptick in cases, obviously that would be an immediate reconvening of not only the school district, but our local Board of Health, similar to what happened last March, where all of a sudden we saw this wave of COVID rise across the state. I will tell you, we don't need and would not hesitate to close if we had to. In terms of the district, we don't wait for the state because, quite frankly, I think we're more out in front of our own community than, quite frankly, the state government would be, and I think understandably so. In terms of school closures, obviously, this is a first situation for us. I mentioned earlier, I think it was to Stephanie Wilson, who had a good question on that as well. There's so many variables that can come into play in terms of the actions to take. The number of individuals, for example, the number of possible individuals. Sometimes what you could see in a community is we may hear, and I hope this does not happen, but we may hear of one person, and then we might find out that maybe perhaps even within a family or within a team or within some type of smaller organization, whether it be adults or children, that it becomes increasingly expansive. The state has a protocol for determining the closure of schools, but what they also underscore is that you can't simply apply a chart to every situation. In this case, we felt it was very important, based on the number of contacts that we felt we had to make, that we wanted to make sure that all of those contacts have been contacted and that their health would be monitored. We have a certain amount of days because we have unique information that would only be available to us in terms of what that individual experienced from a symptomatic standpoint, leading up to any positive confirmed case.
Okay, so just so I want to make sure I'm hearing you right. So some of the factors are the number total infected in the community, which I understand, and the rate of attrition of the disease, of virus, or rate of transmission, of the virus going up. But at some point, I think as a parent, we'd like to understand the framework, and a chart, while it can be evolving, gives us a framework so we understand the parameters in which we work in. My wife particularly is a teacher in another school district. She is working full-time, teaching remote, 100% down in our basement. I work with the Defense Health Agency, supporting all active military and healthcare during this crisis. So I have my 70-year-old mother trying to navigate a Chromebook in the other room with a six-year-old and an 8-year-old, trying to do what most adults can't do, is be on a Zoom for 5 hours, right? So if I have to make adjustments to whatever that may be, I think what we're trying to seek is for the framework to notify so we can be in a more proactive position instead of a reactive position. And I understand outliers occur, such as, we get caught off guard by a random outbreak, and you can't be responsible for that. However, if the transmission rate is going up, if we have key indicators or markers where we can temperature gauge, the parents would be a lot more comfortable, because then we can plan accordingly to say, hey, I need childcare for 5 days a week. I need, or if it's going down, when is the markers of we're going to go back in? So right now, it seems that I've heard a lot of talk of, more fully remote in the conversation, but I haven't heard talk of the other direction of a 4-day possibly going in. And if people want to stay and teach and learn from home, they can stay and learn from home. 1 day to sanitize the school and then go back. So I would just like, and I attached a document from a similar community to ours where it outlines specifically the framework, and it is a public school system with the same demographics that we have. And I put it on my email that gave an outline of kind of how they're handling it. So I'd like, and this is an ask of my first question, is for the next meeting that we can have a document of some sort with parameters that are outlined that we can kind of gauge by, right? That, to get a better parameter of how, indicator of how us parents should be able to kind of forecast if we can.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I just have the 3 that you said. The number you had, or 2, the possible total individuals infected and the number of total cases in the community. Those are the 2 parameters that I have, and I hope we can have a little bit more substantial document that indicates specifically, rates, and goes a little bit more granular. Is that a fair ask for the next meeting?
I think it's a fair ask. I mentioned earlier I meet with the Board of Health on a weekly basis. I hope you guys can all hear me, because I know I've been having some transmission problems. So as I mentioned before at the start, that this is a week where we begin looking at the next 6-week chunk or 6-week segment, if you will, because we're certainly not going to wait till week 5 to begin doing that. So part of what's on the docket this week is my discussion with the Board of Health to begin to look at what indicators that we should be looking for, what markers we should be alerted to that might enable us to become less restrictive. We don't want to become more restrictive, but as I think you can see, we didn't hesitate to do that yesterday in the interest of public health. But that is what we all want. We want to be able to move forward and become less restrictive over time. But as I mentioned earlier, we have to vet any move we make. And this isn't the Board of Health talking, this is Jeff Moore talking, with our Board of Health, with our school physician, because we don't want to increase the amount of folks we might put into jeopardy, because that certainly is something none of us would want. But I can certainly ask the Board of Health, what they might consider to be a flexible blueprint, if you will, because I think you noted earlier that not every situation will fit a, in my words, not yours, a textbook blueprint in terms of a response. But rest assured, as I said earlier, we do vet everything with our school physician and with our local Board of Health, and obviously spent time with them yesterday in reaching this decision.
Yeah, I understand it's a living document, right? It's not a finite. It has to be able to change. And like I said, we're trying to work with you. We're just trying to understand
Absolutely.
it a little better.
Yeah.
The second part to that is, if somebody is tested positive, does the school have on the Board of website or the Department of Health a list of local physicians or testing facilities where parents can get their children tested? I know Dr. Jeffrey Merkel in Hackettstown that offers a rapid test that takes insurance. It's a 15-minute test with 95% accuracy. And if you don't have insurance or you don't want to wait, for insurance to be approved, it's $75 out of pocket. Mm-hmm. Do we have a list of, just because of, if parents are put in a reactionary position where my kid is tested, I know where to go, right? But do other parents, do we have a list of testing facilities or physicians that offer these rapid tests?
What I can do is part of our dialogue on Thursday. I'll ask the Board of Health that question. Our guidance very early on has been, if parents have concerns, they should be turning to their primary care physician who could certainly give them better guidance than I could. I know there are two different types of tests. We've got the antigen test, but we also have the molecular test. I'm hearing that the molecular test might be more conclusive and more reliable. I'm not a scientist, but that's what my Board of Health is sharing with me. The molecular test, meaning the literal nose swab. And I can ask what, care centers might be available for that. But my go-to guidance to parents is always going to be to consult your school physician as it would be, your primary care physician as it would be for our faculty as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for your comment.
Can I ask my remaining question or am I done?
I want to give an opportunity for other people to.
All right, I'll ask my last one. My last question is this. So we currently have a hybrid school schedule. It's been very taxing. I don't think it's very effective right now, but I understand, again, it's a living organism. So two things. What is the Board of Ed's definition of success for that hybrid schedule? And then have we polled, is that whatever definition it is it in line with the teachers and what the community thinks? And have we polled them, or do we plan to do so? The teachers and communities, to kind of get their sense of how this hybrid system is working, hybrid schedule?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind, and I appreciate that question very much, is what we learned from last spring. And as good as that was, we all recognize that we're not going to rest on the goodness or the laurel of goodness. And that we understood from community members that people were looking for more, in some cases, more on-air live time with their teachers. That brought us obviously to the current hybrid model of instruction. What we are seeing at the beginning of the year, and understandably so, we realize that there's a difference between going to a platform using technology as in September as there is, let's say, in March or April. So what we see in the beginning of the year is we see teachers getting to know their children, trying to cement as many routines as possible, as well as teaching technology types of skills to, yes, even our youngest of learners. So what we're seeing in action right now is a growing level of comfort that could not possibly come in that first week, because it was very new. Not only was the approach new, but the learners in front of the teachers were new to them as well. What we anticipate is children are going to be able to become slightly more independent. I'm thinking of our young learners over time, where our older children tend to be a bit more independent in their learning or self-directed in their learning, where we can have more opportunities for children to be set up with an activity and for them to, let's say, log off or leave the meet, work on that activity, and then rejoin. And that's what we expect to see over time. We're confident that some of the early bugs are being tickled out, so to speak, and we're seeing a growing confidence with each passing day. But this is going to take some time. I'm not a big fan of the word unprecedented because I've heard it so many times, but it is exactly what it is. I think the key is to, as we meet with our leadership team tomorrow, I mentioned earlier, we're back on our regular Wednesday schedule. During the summer, we met on Tuesdays. One of the things we're going to be doing is looking at and reflecting upon those first 2 weeks and begin to have rich dialogues about what's working well, what needs to be refined, what perhaps needs to be rethought, to your point when you mentioned living document before. And then how do we engage our faculty, because they are rich with ideas as well, and how do we begin to foster the articulation across grade levels across the district as we were able to do last spring at the early onset. which really enabled people to share ideas and strategies and say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Let me show you how you can do this. And that worked very, very well, bringing teachers from across the district together. And that's exactly what we intend to do as we begin planning our next 6-week segment.
No, I get it, but from what I'm just wondering, so we work in corporate America and we have an employee opinion survey. We use SurveyMonkey. It's a typical survey you can put out that the parents and the teachers can answer without reprisal. You can do it anonymously, and I call that if you did something like that to gauge the success and what the parents are feeling on this hybrid model, and then sharing the results. I think I'd be very happy. I'll yield and then come back on the next docket for the rest of my questions, or I hope we can have a response from the rest of my questions, because I believe they're very important and crucial to at least my family and most of the families that I've spoke to throughout the community. I'm involved with the Soccer Association. We've had a lot of dialogue with the 430 children, the parents of the children, and they feel kind of the same way, that we're setting our kids up for failure and leading to eventual teacher burnout. And not because of the efforts aren't there from your end, but I think whatever it is, it needs to be augmented and really understand the pulse of the teachers in the community a little closer.
Thank you, Lloyd.
We appreciate that.
Thank you
Very much so.
And Lloyd, your document was received this afternoon, so it hasn't yet been distributed to the board, but I will send that out to them tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
And Carmine, that was it for those that registered for tonight's meeting?
Okay.
May I just say something? There was an email that came to us right before we started the meeting. Liz, I forwarded it on to you, someone who wanted to speak, but for some reason the comments one just kept bouncing back to them.
I don't look at the email after the 6:30 timeframe.
All right.
I'm managing the meeting, so that's
okay.
why we set a time.
Patty Reslin also made a request.
Maybe next month?
I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a 6:30 time thing. I just saw it before.
That's what we
getting an email in from Patty.
Just for logistic purposes, that's what we put on the website, because I need the opportunity to be able to send the links and all of that. And, generally I grab a little bite
Patty's
to eat
familiar
right
with the
before
process. And as the WTEA president, I think she should be allowed to speak tonight.
Is she there?
Carmine?
I just got an email from her.
Well, Beth Perry, I thought, also sent an email about 6 o'clock.
I received,
I'll check the time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 responses, and they were all admitted to the meeting. I think, Carmine, we discussed that around 6:30.
6:30, you said was the cutoff, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do whatever you would prefer.
When we get the request from our union president, I think we should not.
Well, I mean, if she's there,
I'll have to go into.
How hard can it be for you to make that possible?
It's not impossible. It's just a process. So let me get out of the Zoom meeting. I try to be very careful because I don't want to hit the wrong button and end the meeting that is being broadcast out, which would limit the feed. So bear with me for a moment. Okay, bear with me. I see an email came in at 6:36, so I did not catch that one. Hold on, Patty, if you are watching, I will send you the link.
Well, if we're going to do that, we should send the link to Beth Perry too.
She sent an email to the whole board that everything kept bouncing back, so she wasn't able to send it to the comments email. I forwarded to you, Liz. It should be in your Board of Ed email.
And that was definitely.
Okay. I haven't looked at that either, so bear with me.
That's fine.
As Liz looks for those 2 emails, I think Liz will look for other additional emails so that we can honor everyone.
Yeah, I will make sure that there's nothing else there. But again, I just need to be very careful that I don't hit the wrong button and completely end the meeting for all of you. So let me get to the email where I sent out the meeting link. Bear with me. Okay. Okay, so the meeting link has been sent to Patty. Once I let her into the meeting, I will see if there's anything else there.
We're going to also reach out to the other person from the public.
Yeah, so I'm going to check the email
We should make sure.
I will check the email out to make sure that there's nobody else in that loop. But for some reason, the whole meeting, here we go. And there she is. So here she comes. And then I will go back to look to see if there's anything else sitting there.
All right, Patty, you hear us?
Anything else sitting there?
All right. Hi, I know Beth Perry, also Patty Met.
Yes, and she's.
Oh, can you hear me?
Contact her. Yes.
Okay. I know Patty Metz also sent in something and it kept getting bounced back to her. Also Patty Metz.
Patty, can you turn off the YouTube link? Because otherwise we'll get some feedback.
Yep. Patty Metz also. There we go. Where am I now? All right. We all good now?
We're good.
Okay. Like I said, Patty Metz also was another one that wanted to speak tonight. I know she said that it got bounced back to her. But just on a side note too, I think, this is the way that you guys are deciding to do these meetings because we can't have the number of people. There has to be an option somehow for people that do want to speak last minute and not just decide before 6:30 that they want to speak. Because sometimes, within involved in the discussion or even the president's comments or the superintendent's comments, things come up and people want to then speak about what they just heard. And that's the last minute. And, sometimes, people don't want to speak and then they kind of get the feeling that, I have the confidence I do want to speak tonight. So there has to be an option somehow to allow people to do that. So that's just a side note. I was struggling with what I wanted to say tonight, just based on the last 3 weeks, actually, that our members have been in. But the start of the school year, the building administrators and Dr. Patatori, they tried to be very supportive. They were very supportive to the staff, but we were still given little direction on how to do our jobs because we've never had received any training really on these jobs, how to do it. We have constant technology issues, which we've all experienced tonight with Jeff's, of course, speaker going in and out. Our workload has increased enormously. We're constantly having to make changes, which we're flexible as educators. We have to do that. But it's a constant ongoing thing from one class to another, making these changes. And we're forced to go in different directions at times. We have really been told, here's the issue, but you need to figure it out yourself. We've been left to come up with our solutions for everything. We are mentally and physically exhausted. I've seen colleagues break down daily. I receive emails, text messages, and phone calls about colleagues breaking down or colleagues seeing their other colleagues breaking down and are concerned about them. We have had to fight for accommodations for some of our staff members, where we even had to have doctors change the recommendations because the district does not see a need for a staff member to be fully remote, even though it is what is best for the employee's health. Jeff had mentioned that we're ready to open, that we were ready to open in August, but at the expense, I have to say, at the expense of the social and emotional health and physical health of the employees. It was a rush to open. The technology wasn't really properly functioning and not tested in the classroom for everything that we had to do, teaching remotely while having the kids in class and the fully virtual to really communicate that same thing. The building temperatures, again, were so high, and then you add the mask to it, the face shields. Even with the limited kids in the classroom, the temperatures were too high. Many feel the district is not concerned with the well-being of their staff. And if we keep going at our current stress level, we're going to be losing staff members to multiple illnesses, leaving you short-staffed. As it is, some are looking into other options. Several staff members we see have retired that you saw their retirement tonight and you spoke about it. They retired because they felt that was their only option for their personal health, was to accept retirement, because if they didn't, they were afraid that they were going to get sick. Functioning in this capacity is not sustainable, and it reeks of disrespect for employees. Some of our other concerns, of course, face masks not being worn properly, so we're being exposed that way. Social distancing is not fully happening in the classrooms, and it can't happen in the classrooms. Staff members that report to 2 different schools where there is a building shutdown but are still asked to report to the other school without having any guidance that way. So, they were concerned about going to that other school when there was a reported case at the middle school where she worked, and then having to go to the other school. Eating in the classrooms, we can finally eat in restaurants, but they're saying a lot of the cases that are happening are, they find back through the contact tracing, it's because of eating out in restaurants, but we're going to have our kids and our staff members eating in the classroom. More supervision at the middle school. I've been hearing, of course, I haven't seen it or experienced it, but lunchtime at the middle school, there's not enough supervision where kids are walking around and talking and not really social distancing. And I can go on and on. I was hoping that more people were actually going to be able to speak or speak up, but I don't know if they got the information in. They weren't really sure how to speak. We've been open now for 2 weeks with the students, and of course, we already had to shut down. Yes, you said you were being overly cautious, but we still had a confirmed case. I heard just finally tonight that we're going to be reevaluating, because we want to be more proactive than reactive, and it feels like we're being more reactive, that things are happening and then we're reacting to it. And we need to have those plans in place. And when we are reevaluating, are we going to get more input from the stakeholders? Are we going to listen and talk to the people? Are you actually going to listen to the needs of the staff members who, are just, they're doing everything they can just to make it through the day? Where a staff member even said today, is it Friday yet? And then I think we need to talk more about what and how we are going to reach our students and the best practice to do this in our near future and distant future. With COVID cases in New Jersey, we know, maybe not in Long Valley, but COVID cases in New Jersey are on the rise. It's just, possibly going to happen in Long Valley. And now we're entering cold and flu season. I think we need to focus more on what we're going to do in the near and distant future, and be, like I said, be more proactive than reactive. I came in a little bit late, but the goals, I saw that the board goals, I'm reading through the board goals, and a lot of them seem like they pertain to the normal classroom setting and the normal classroom environment. And at this point, we're anything but normal. And we don't want to be caught in a mess like we were spring, of course, and not having that plan in place. And we know, I know as a parent that I expect more from my daughter's teachers, just like I know, our parents expect more from me. So that's what I have. I know, like I said, Beth Perry and Patty Mutz wanted to speak, but I'm not sure how much you guys actually knew or understand about how your staff were actually feeling. And they're just trying to keep their heads above water. You know, they're staying up, they're spending countless hours trying to teach all these different ways and with very little training. You know, the first day of school, I asked the kids if they thought I was a student and they said no. And I said, I definitely am a student because I haven't been trained on how to teach the way we're teaching right now. And I feel I've personally, I feel I've done an exceptional job. I've been able to do a lot more than what I would have ever given myself credit for. But there's times just clear frustration because you're going from one classroom to another. You're working in other people's rooms, trying to get technology to work, and you lose kids, your primary focus. You can't focus just on one group. You're focusing on the kids that are online, and then you're focusing on the kids in the classroom. And we're missing things. Kids are at a loss. I know yesterday, I had a great day yesterday because we were all in one place like we are right now. I was able to focus on everyone and be in the present with everyone in the same place. And it needs to be some type of all or nothing at this point. And I hope that more of us are involved in the conversation going forward and the plan for the next 6 weeks, and then the next 6 weeks, and the next 6 weeks. So, thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
Okay, we do have two others that sent in a email, so I will admit them one by one.
Larissa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you are.
Okay. Hi. So, my name is Larissa Chen.
Larissa, are you there?
Hello? Yes. Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yes.
Larissa, if you could just mute your YouTube feed.
Yes.
Because it's on a slight delay.
My name is Larissa
Larissa, are
Chen.
you there?
Hello? Yes. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. So, well, first, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk now. I know I sent in my request a little bit on the late side, but it was definitely before 6:30, but I've never done this before. And I also wanted to thank all of you guys for making the decision to continue to hold these meetings virtually. Because at one time, I held the belief that if we felt it was safe enough to send our students and staff back into schools, it should also be safe enough for you guys to meet in person. But I read an op-ed piece on August 28th in the New York Times that changed my mind about all this. The author, who's a pediatrician and parent, framed it in terms of the things the community can do in order to make it possible for kids to return safely to school. So as we loosen restrictions in some areas of our lives, we should be increasing restrictions in others. And if we want to take on the risk of sending kids and teachers to school, and I think we do, we need to find ways to be even safer outside of school. So we can sacrifice things like hanging out inside bars and having board meetings in person in order to make it less risky to send our loved ones into school buildings. And as an added bonus, it does make it easier for busy parents to attend meetings than if we had to drive down to a school and sit quietly for an hour or two. So, but what I really wanted to talk about, however, was this. I'm an employee of the district, and it recently came to light that a family at the school I work in returned from a state that is on New Jersey's quarantine list just a couple of days before the first day of the school year. When they were questioned about their travels, they claimed they had returned much earlier, more than 2 weeks before the start of school. My understanding is that we have to take them at their word, even if we are aware that they're not being honest. Now, I know there's a lot of families that do a lot of traveling out of state and all around for sports or family or whatever. We all have our lives to live, and I respect that, of course. But if in-person schooling is going to work in Washington Township, we need everyone to do the right thing and quarantine themselves as appropriate. Just recently, a staff member at our school was sent home due to having had contact with someone from another state on New Jersey's quarantine list. And I'm grateful to this person for being honest and cautious and being willing to oblige. If more people aren't willing to do this, then I fear that they are unnecessarily increasing the risk of bringing the virus into our schools, getting more of our friends and neighbors sick, and increasing the likelihood that all of us are forced back into full remote learning, which I don't think any of us wants. We have to work as a team to stay healthy because we don't have a choice but to trust each other to keep us safe. But it's hard to have that kind of trust when there are obviously people who are betraying that trust. And I don't understand how we're hoping to go back to full-time school that way. So my request to the entire school community is this. If you've been in any sort of high-risk situation, please don't knowingly expose your classmates, teachers, and staff. Just stay home for 2 weeks and take advantage of virtual learning. Tonight's agenda included a number of staff members who've chosen to take unpaid leaves of work, being unable to risk coming back into the school building at this time. Having been in contact with one of the above-mentioned out-of-state travelers, I'm wondering if I should be making that choice as well. But what I would really love is to be able to trust the people around me to make good choices for our community so that I and others, we can all keep our families safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa.
Thank you so much, Larissa.
Okay, and we have Beth Perry. And I will check one more time to make sure that there aren't any other last-minute requests.
Beth, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Make sure that
Yes.
there aren't any other last-minute requests.
Beth, you there?
I'm
You
here.
have to mute your YouTube.
Yes. On any other last-minute requests.
There you go. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm coming. I think I'm coming. I have to go in again. Hold on. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Beth Perry. I'm a resident at 31 Old Farmers Road and a teacher in the district for 25 years. I'm a special education teacher and a certified dyslexia teacher and therapist with a specialization in Orton-Gillingham instruction. As you see from the board minutes, I am retiring as of October 1st, and I'd like to speak about that for a minute. I've been a special education teacher for 30 years, and anyone who knows me, whose children I've worked with, and who have worked with me know that I have an exceptional reputation. This reputation has been built based on my core values around children, specifically children who are classified. I consider it my moral and ethical responsibility as a special educator to give children, to the best of my ability, what they need, academically, behaviorally, emotionally. As their teacher, I have always considered the whole child. I know this can be challenging in a public school setting, but I still believe it is the district's responsibility to the best of their ability to give children what they need. The past 6 years in this district have been quite challenging. I worked at Cuccinella, where there have been major changes, particularly with changes in administration and the philosophy around special education and education in general. Over these past 6 years, I have found myself having to fight for the needs of my students like never before in my career. My professional opinion and experience carrying less weight with each passing year. Standing up for students who needed aids, students who need behavioral support, and students whose placements were not, in my opinion, appropriate to their academic needs. With each passing year, I've grown more frustrated, feeling defeated and devalued, yet still an advocate for my kids. And if it were just me, I probably wouldn't be speaking here today. I know this is true for so many of my colleagues as well. When COVID hit in March and school shut down, the teachers in this district more than rose to the challenge of providing meaningful learning virtually to their students, spending hours and hours learning the technology, keeping the students in their classrooms connected, and moving forward until we finish the school year. In April, in the middle of this chaos and this pandemic, during Teacher Appreciation Week, staff members at Cuccinella received phone calls from the principal about our placements for this school year. In the midst of this pandemic, 16 staff members were moved to new positions, many of which they had never taught or had experience with, unable to get back into the building at the end of the year to prepare, and frankly blindsided by the decisions that were made. A friend of mine actually resigned over this situation. I personally was moved out of a resource room setting where I had been for 25 years and where my skill set, particularly my Orton Gillingham certification, was much needed and appropriate, into a general education first grade classroom to co-teach for students who are much less needy. I too was stunned, yet again feeling devalued and defeated. As you know, we started back to school in August with a plan for a hybrid teaching model. As challenging as virtual learning was in the spring, there is no comparison to what is happening in classrooms now. Teachers, again, are killing themselves to make this work for parents and students and themselves. I understand how the plan looks and sounds good in theory, and yet I see the reality of it every day, and it is not good. It is exhausting. Seasoned teachers feel incompetent and are overstressed and overwhelmed with the enormity of this situation. I watch them working well into the night planning. I watch them fall apart in the hallway from the stress, and I hear their comments about feeling completely incompetent and not wanting to come back to work. I watch many teachers go through this wondering, where is the help? Wondering if anyone is actually watching and listening. In the midst of all this, I continue to have to fight for the needs of my classified students, my professional opinion and experience seemingly being ignored again. It is only September 15th. On the fourth day of school, I decided I needed to retire. I love teaching, I love my students, and I love my colleagues. However, by the end of the first week, the stress and the overall feeling of defeat and sadness and morale in my building pushed me out the door. And I consider myself lucky to be able to go. I started this statement with my philosophy that we have a responsibility to give kids what they need. These kids, your kids, need teachers who are valued and respected and listened to and cared for and healthy. I ask you as administration and as members of the board to keep an eye on your teachers. Give them the support and respect they so need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
So Carmen, I just checked the email address and I don't see anybody else that has indicated they would like to speak.
Well, I'm going to open it up for general comments. If anybody has, I know what, it's making me think a lot about what we should be doing, moving forward. And we need to, the committees need to really do some soul searching as to how we move forward. We can't afford to demoralize teachers. That's just not possible. As I think I told Liz yesterday, my niece is a speech therapist in Staten Island. And one of the buildings, because of all this, lost 24 teachers. And they're scrambling to try to hire people, and people don't want to work because it's too stressful. So it's just something we have to think about. Now, if anybody has a comment, something they'd like to say, the floor is yours.
Can I say something?
Sure, you can.
Well, thank you. Actually, I'd like to say two things. I'd like to say, as a parent at Cuccinella, I have been vocal about there not being consistency for a while, and I'd like to reiterate that. I think it's a real problem. Obviously, I'm gonna have children there for a long time, so I'm hoping that we really work, to rectify that and get some stability and boost morale and get back to where I know we can be, because I adore that school and I adore that staff, and I stand behind the talent that is there 120%. I also just want to ask the community to have a little bit of empathy and compassion with each other, for the teachers, for us. I think the general climate in the United States right now is extremely intense all around. I think we've all suffered through this pandemic, and I think that it is affecting us all emotionally and physically. And I just want to ask for a little bit of grace as we navigate through this. It's something new, and I think we're all just trying our best with what we have to just get through it. And it's just sometimes a good reminder to take a step back and think about that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Carmine, I'd like to talk.
Yeah, Jesse.
I just want to tell the board members, the admins, the teachers, none of this is easy, and if we don't try to work on this as a team, and be honest with each other and be honest with our community, it's not going to last, especially like to echo what Larissa said, having parents that go to a hot zone and come back and don't quarantine themselves. I mean, that's exactly how this thing keeps on spreading and promulgating. It's not that hard, Wear your mask, don't touch your face out in public, wash your hands all the time, and try to maintain your social distance. And this very fragile thing that we're trying to get through, and don't think for a second, at least in my mind, that it isn't in my mind all the time. It will hopefully get through it. It's not easy. It's not easy on any of us right now. And just like Jess said, we need some grace. We need some grace and some patience and some perseverance. Thanks, Carmen.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? It's like you drive a car and you have to rely on people around you that they're doing their job. They're not texting. They're not driving drunk. This pandemic is exactly the same. Everybody has to do his and her part. And if you don't work together, forget it. We're lost. We're lost.
Carmine, I would just like to say thank you for everybody for speaking up today and using their voice, because unless people speak, we don't know what's going on necessarily, and it counts when they speak at the meeting. So I want to say thank you for everybody speaking. And also, like for the teachers, I know right now, for my experience personally, it's been a much better one than it was in the spring, and the teachers have put on a brave face, because I wouldn't know there was something going on behind the scenes, because my child is actually having a great experience right now, and we are distance learning completely. So to the teachers who spoke up, thank you, and I appreciate that also. And thank you for all your hard work. We do appreciate it.
I would certainly echo that. We have a different situation where we're actually in school, on the rotating schedule, and we've had a really, great first couple of weeks. And, it's interesting just to see, the excitement of the kids to be back in school, not just, my kids, but their friends. And even under the new restrictions and guidelines, I think they're happy to be, back. And, we've had a very good experience, and, appreciate all the support from the teachers and the staff and the administration, certainly at the middle school, and for making it a great first 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I'm experiencing the same thing at Flocktown with my granddaughter. Same thing.
I would echo that at Old Farmers.
Mm-hmm. The kids needed to go back, even on this hybrid schedule. they needed to go back. You know, it was important to them.
Agree.
Yeah. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Jessica, Al, second. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you, folks. Good night.
Oh, and Liz, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the extra time to, have everybody speak. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah, and
much.
Carmine, we can discuss process
Right.
because,
So I don't know how difficult it is on your end.
well, it's just, I want to make sure that I don't typically look at my emails during the board meeting simply
Right.
because I need to focus on the board meeting and keep things running. But good night, all.
Good night. Thank you again. Bye-bye.